Welcome to Thriving Tribesmen. My name is Corey, your host, and I'm excited to be making this episode. One of the things that I've recently discovered was that a lot of people, when they go into this weird cycle within relationships where we're literally making the same mistake, and we'll do that for the rest of our lives if we don't switch things up. And a lot of it is to do around how you conflict resolution within a relationship. A lot of people, they sort of continue they continue on with their relationship, and then when they hit a snag, they would have an argument or a misunderstanding, and everybody, the emotions rise. You get upset about the whole situation, and usually those are like growing pains, isn't it? You're requesting for your partner to operate out of their comfort zone, and they don't want to, so therefore they've got this emotional response. And again, this, it works both ways. So she might have a question, she might question the standards that you're bringing, and therefore she wants you to rise up from the comfort zone, and therefore you might have an emotional response to it and say, you know what, I don't want you to be controlling, I don't want to be toxic, or whatever you decide to frame that in order for you not to move forward. So it becomes very important to, how do you navigate those conflicts, because that will continuously happen. And the reason why it happens is because it's really impossible for a person to remain the same. Now, and again, time forces you to grow regardless whether you want it or not. And again, when you're growing, it doesn't mean it's a positive thing. You're probably growing into something that is terrible. And I think this is one of the thing about self-development that I think is not talked about enough, that growth is inevitable. It's like every summer comes along, is that, well, my grass is looks good, I still have to contend with weeds. Like, weeds are going to always come up. I've tried weed killer. I've tried everything to. When I say weeds, I'm not talking about this marijuana. I mean, like, anyways. So it's just inevitable that it's going to grow, but I don't like it. And it's the same thing that you might be growing into bad habits, or you're growing into something that is positive for a relationship. Either way, you are growing. So sometimes, as you evolve over a period of time, it creates this contention that happens where your wife might actually question your standards or your efforts, and then you might feel some type of way about it, and you might do the same. So this is inevitable that you guys are going to have conflict, and conflict becomes this catalyst of you to go to the next level of how you're going to, or at least um, upgrading your rules of engagement, as I like to call it. So your rules of engagement, how you interact in your relationship, changes over a period of time as you navigate some of those negative emotions, as in when you now requesting for them to operate out of that comfort zone that they've built up. So it becomes very important that, okay, when we do have that conflict, how do we navigate that? So, and I say, and there's a thing that I call snapping back, which is where, if you imagine a elastic band, when you stretch it, that would be you guys now really under strain, is in, you now talking about it, and both of you are emotionally, or in an emotional place where it's a negative, is when you stretch it, when you're now really trying to get that person off their comfort zone. And that can take some time, where they might need some time to actually cool off, think about, wrap their head around what you're requesting, or you might need some time to cool off and get your head around that. um, Most men in this situation tend to be the ones that take ownership of trying to make things right again. So sometimes she might get upset, and she's now in this position where she's used her being upset as a way of re uh, re re-hooking you, and really dominating you. So I'm getting my mundo up here. Let me just take it back a step. So in many cases, a lot of you guys have now got this real cycle that is sort of shown up in your relationship, that whenever you challenge her in order to up, or at least move out of your comfort zone, or at least up her standards, or at least represent the marriage the way she's promised that she was going to represent the marriage, she would get upset. So you've made her accountable for her actions. She's not used to being made accountable for her actions. All of a sudden, you're the bad guy because you've made her accountable, and she will give you the silent treatment. and over a period of time, because you want a connection, because you know that you've initiated this interaction where you're asking for it to grow, she makes you feel bad about talking about it, to the point that you then go and then you apologize for having a strong stance on raising the standards of the relationship. And this cycle has happened for many reasons, where you find yourself apologizing for something that was beneficial for the relationship, or even beneficial for the relationship, but for some reason she's, in her mind, sees it as toxic, is what women like to say, or abusive, because you've made him accountable for her actions. And I see this quite often. I've been arguing with people online right now, and every time I make women accountable for their actions, they get, in fact, one of them got me blocked by Instagram. I was trying to write the comment to write back, and Instagram said, no, you're not allowed to write comments to this person. And I was like, oh shit, she blocked me. But she had an emotional response, because all of a sudden she was um I put a question, that she was saying something about her husband having to do stuff in order to get affection. I was like, you're in a relationship, you should both be doing stuff to each other for affection. It shouldn't be responsible for one guy to do it. So you're failing. Well, basically, I quoted, I said, you're failing as a wife. And she was really upset by the whole thing. But it was true. So again, my point being that it's very, women find it hard when you make them accountable for something. And most of you guys tend to take the burden of trying to reconnect things. Now, this is a failure, massive failure, and you need to stop. I declined last week. It took him 14 days. We talked about something like this, and I said, well, he decided he's going to let things go and not try and reconnect and wait for her to make the first move. And this was really important, because he allowed time under tension, which means that she now had to navigate those negative feelings. And because he was not there to outlet those negative feelings, it means that she now had to process it. Now, this is really important, because this now gives her the skills that she needs to start dealing with those negative scenarios. It's just those negative feelings, because a lot of you guys, when those negative feelings happen, you come to her rescue. She never learns to deal with accountability. She never learns to deal with the negative side of growth, and therefore she remains immature emotionally. She remains immature from a contribution standpoint, and then you end up in this negative cycle where, you, every time you cross some balls and make her accountable, she gets pissed off, and then you then run back and then try and make things right by lowering your standards again. Absolute fucking shit. I'm on YouTube. I shouldn't be swearing. Anyways, so as we move forward, you need to allow time and attention. And more importantly, when you do allow time and attention, it's really for the benefit of the relationship, in the sense that you're waiting for it to come over. Now, this might be a time that you might allow that time and attention, a week. In this case, instead of calling my client, I will call him my friend. My friend decided to go for over 14 days. And after 14 days, it came up to her and said, do we need to talk? She was so relieved that she said, yes, I've been wanting to say the same. So, and the conversation they had was more collaborative than anything. And the way I explained it to him was like, this time and attention is like a catapult. You know how you are at one position, and as you pull back, it seems like you're going backwards, but when you let go, it takes you further within the relationship where you saw it. The growth that they had over the past 14 days of time and attention has been so much more than they would have had over the next few weeks. So again, this is very powerful, in the sense that when you're genuinely doing something that is going to be beneficial for the relationship, you need to stay strong on it. When you stay strong on it, it's becomes something that is going to build you guys up. And again, whenever you make it accountable, she gets pissed off, you allow it to get pissed off, you allow it to process those emotions, but it should not be up to you to go and then save her from it. Again, you have to allow that time and attention. Recently, just to wrap this up, my daughter, she's got ADHD, and she's absolutely lovely little kid. She's, affectionate, very kind, but at the same time, she's got this sensory processing stuff. And the school is aware, they've got certain strategies for her, and not all the teachers understand what it is. So they know what's going on, and they have their own preconceived ideas around it. So yesterday we were talking about this, and she was saying that this teacher was having a go at me because I was fiddling with my pen and I was feeling anxiety and so on. So we got to the bottom of it, which was that she was feeling a level of anxiety, and that this person was not understanding what was going on, and really she just needed maybe a movement break. So it would have been a case of, can you do this for me? The teacher would have said, oh, can you take this book and put it on that bookshelf, and that movement would have allowed her to sort of allow that sort of energy to go off. Or do you need to go to the toilet, or do you need to go and have some fresh air? That would have been the strategy that she should have done, the teacher, in order to just give her that momentary release. But however, she decided to not, make this an uncomfortable situation even more uncomfortable. I didn't like it. My wife certainly doesn't like it, but we've both decided that in this interaction, we're not going to get involved. So I'm not going to write an email to the school and say, "Oh, you need to do this. Could do this provisions for my daughter." We've tasked her with having to speak to that teacher herself and say, "I do feel a level of anxiety at this point, and sometimes when I play with my pen or fiddle with my pen, it's because I'm feeling this level of anxiety. Um, this is my condition, and this is how it is." So it's very complex for her to try and do that. It's, she's nervous about it and so on. But I'm pushing her to the point where she takes responsibility of what is going on. Now, I've given her a strategy of that she needs to speak to that teacher. This is what she needs to say. If that doesn't work, she goes to the year teacher, so the one that looks after all the kids of her age group. She can speak to that person. If that person doesn't resolve it, then there's a person who's in charge of children with ADHD and special needs. So she's got a a process of dealing with it, and in all these processes, if she has to get to that point, I want her to be dealing with it by herself. Now, it sounds cruel from my side that I'm putting all this responsibility on her, but if she manages to change this, it reveals to her the power of her being able to deal with scenarios like this by herself. It will build level of confidence, but more importantly, it will build a level of competence to navigate difficult conversations, which is a life skill that she can be able to carry for the rest of her life. Some of you guys choose to become the hero to your partner and never put her through the place where she actually learns the skill. She's never learnt it. And you've made the relationship as such. And you will continuously be in a sexless relationship up until she actually learns to navigate negative emotions, or at least the the growth pains of a relationship, and be able to snap back to a point where you can both interact. In fact, for her to initiate when she realizes that, okay, shit, I'm being made accountable for my actions within this relationship. Therefore, how do we navigate our relationship now that we have this new way of interacting within our relationship? So this becomes extremely powerful. And one of the strategies I'm going to leave you with is that in order to make this work, it's more important to that when things are good within your relationship, revisit your last fight and it's like reviewing game tape. Like, you know what? Last time when we had that argument, I can see that you came from this point of view, and understand why you came from that point of view. I was coming from this point of view. Really, it was me because I care about you. I care about our family. I care about our relationship. But however, let's see how we can have these discussions, and these negative discussions are going to happen. How are we going to deal with it next time? Now, this is extremely powerful because a lot of you guys try and deal with how to argue when the emotions are already high. So again, it becomes clunky and hard to resolve. But if you have a strategy on that, yes, we are going to have this negative argument, and there will be emotions that will be running high. If you have a strategy of how to navigate through that, the snapback becomes a lot easier. It becomes a lot easier to resolve quickly, and it's almost like having a cheat sheet on how to have an argument, or at least how to grow your relationship. Because by talking about it outside of the any other emotions, like, and again, your partner will question, why are we talking about this? Why are you bringing this back up? Say, well, if we have a strategy around this, it makes it so much easier for us to allow the friction to happen. And then because we already now know how to bring it back to good. And again, tomorrow I will talk about the person that's most afflicted as a rule of thumb in order to get that conversation going. But for now, I'm going to stop it here. Hopefully, it's something that you needed to hear, and also something that is very important in terms of growth. Because I think yesterday I talked to you about the success of last week in terms of attraction tactics. The one caveat of the whole thing is that my wife has also experienced growth. So some of the things I was doing is also dependent on her growth. So some of the things I was doing might not work for a relationship because she's not had that personal growth for herself. My wife has had a massive level of growth where some of these interactions where we it's negative, we actually recognize that it's just us. It's an opportunity for us to grow rather than an opportunity for her to think I'm being abusive or toxic. Again, if you look from outside in, that's how it looks like. If you have got no maturity in terms of relationships, but when you do have maturity, you actually recognize that this is necessary for growth. So thank you very much, guys. I'll be speaking to you guys soon. Take care.